I know this is how it looks like. OKC fans, another person hating on the team, even though they don't know about the roster that's being built up by Presti and company. Look, I'm going to have something to say about that in later in the video, but I want to talk about just the sadness I feel at what OKC could have been. What the team had before it shattered, before everything collapsed. And it had a potential to be a even bigger dynasty than the Warriors were. And that's not something I say lightly because I watched those OKC games and I was very shocked at how good this team was because I was a Lakers fan because my brothers were Lakers fans, and when I watched them play the OKC Thunder in 2012, I thought, look, Kobe can beat these guys. There's no problem. But then, as the games would go by, the OKC Thunder looked very good, and they beat us 4-1 in the series. And now, 2 years ago, I think it was 2 years ago when they won a championship, Kobe and them. They did play the OKC Thunder, and they got beat by the Lakers at that time. So I thought to myself, history will repeat itself, and there wouldn't be a problem with the Lakers here beating this team. Now, of course, in hindsight, I should have fought better because the Lakers did end up playing 7 games against a Denver Nuggets team that really they weren't supposed to be playing that many games against that team. But it is what it is. I moved on, and the Lakers, they're a great franchise. They're still winning, and speaking of which, I'll get into that later. Now, the OKC Thunder ended up beating the Grizzlies and ended up getting to the NBA Finals. Wait, did they beat the Grizzlies? Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, they beat the Grizzlies to make it to the NBA Finals. I was thinking about last year because they ended up beating them. They ended up beating them in the second round, I think, and then they lost to Dallas. So I was confused. Now they make it to the NBA Finals 2012 and they play the Miami Heat. Very star-studded team. They have Wade, Bosh, and James, and of course, the guy that people love to laugh at, Mary Chalmers, is there, but Mike Miller is there, and you have a lot of talent to that team. And now you have a series that people thought was going to be very close, very competitive, and the first game made you think that it was going to be that, but unfortunately, much of the series ended up looking like the first half of that first game, where Miami would look to beat the OKC Thunder by a lot, and I mean a lot. But the second half of that first game, they did come back, and KD was great, and they won that game, and it was 1-0 for the Thunder. Now, the next 4 games didn't look so good for the Thunder, and James Harden was notorious for being a ghost in that series. He didn't really perform too well, and I'm not sure if you could blame that. If you can blame him that much, it was his very first finals appearance. He was very young. He was a sixth man during that time. And so at that point, I'm not going to put that much blame on him. Now, the reason why I'm sad about this team is because I felt like everything came to an end way too early. And it makes sense because Harden, he wants to have a bigger opportunity. He wants to play in a bigger setting. He wants to have a bigger name to himself, right? And he wants to be able to stamp himself into the league, and it makes sense. And Harden wasn't going to get that money or that playing time in OKC, so he decided to venture off elsewhere. And Ibaka was there, and Ibaka, you could keep him for a couple of years, and so they tried it out with the big three, I guess. KD, Westbrook, and Ibaka, and they still looked good. I mean, they still look like they could potentially win a championship. Every year they played well and they were in the top seeds and they were competing for finals appearance every time. And people were genuinely thinking that it was inevitable and that the Thunder were going to win it all at some point. Harden's team gets better. You have Harden's team competing for a playoff spot, and then you have Harden's team competing for a conference final spot when the OKC Thunder now are struggling to even get there, and it's quite funny. That's the 2015 conference finals, if you guys are not aware of what I'm talking about. Now, 2016, the script gets flipped, and Houston ends up losing early in the playoffs, and I think they lost to Golden State as well. And OKC ends up playing Golden State in the conference finals, and that's where the infamous 3-1 lead was held by the Thunder, and the Thunder just couldn't hold on to that lead. And people argued that if they won that fifth game, or that sixth game or that seventh game, the OKC Thunder would have no doubt won the championship. People are saying actually that the Cleveland would have easily won that championship. It would have been a sweep or a 5 game series. It's all over the place. The takes from that time were weird. Now, 2017 happens, and 2017, before I even talk about 2017, I have to talk to you about what happened in the offseason of 2016 because KD ends up leaving to play for a team that beat them in the conference finals. And people were so upset, and I was very upset. And I feel like in this channel, I want to make like 300 videos talking about how KD is a snake and he's doo doo and he's cupcake this, cupcake that. But I'm going to restrain myself. Okay, my hater energy is taking over this channel too much, and I need to restrain it. I need to tame myself, you know what I mean? So this channel needs to be as objective as it can be because I need to be taken somewhat seriously, even though I don't take myself too seriously. But I want people to know that, I'm not stupid, but at the same time, I do say some stupid stuff. Okay, so enough about me. Now, the OKC Thunder now are playing with a Westbrook team that doesn't have KD, that doesn't have Harden, but they still have Ibaka. Oh, wait. OKC ends up trading Ibaka to Orlando for Victor Oladipo, Ersan Ilyasova, and the rights to the 11th pick of that year's draft. And that happened to be Domantas Sabonis. And at the time, those were good players to get out of a trade, and those were good options. Sabonis, you could develop him. Victor Oladipo, he's a stud. And then you have Ilyasova, he's a decent role player. But unfortunately, when you see what actually panned out for them, it didn't really work out too well. They traded Sabonis away too early, and Victor Oladipo, well as he played, didn't really pan out too well. Injuries hindered his career growth, and now you have Ilyasova. Well, Ilyasova, you just trade him away for some asset that OKC would hopefully want to have to rebuild this roster with. And now you have Westbrook playing by himself when he had those three other players. And Westbrook, he does a great job. Very phenomenal job. He ends up winning MVP, ends up averaging triple double. And at that point, Westbrook was a stud. He was a legit star. He was an all time player. And NBA fans are never going to forget about Westbrook. But obviously, because OKC wasn't even able to win a playoff series, let alone win a title, you have videos like this popping up and me saying that OKC could have been a way better team, and the what if is something that we will never know for sure. And this is where I'll skip over the Paul George instances, I'll skip over the Chris Paul instances, I'm gonna skip over all that and go to the straight present, okay? Now we all know since 2012 when they made the finals, they haven't won a single title. But unfortunately for them, some of the players in that roster did end up winning titles, and the prominent ones being Ibaka in 2019 with the Toronto Raptors, Kevin Durant twice now in the 2017 and 2018 seasons with the Golden State Warriors, and then you have now Russell Westbrook. Although not winning a title, he's now in a contending team, the Lakers, paired with Anthony Davis and LeBron James, and has a chance to compete in the finals against, what do you know, the Nets, who feature Kyrie Irving and both KD and Harden. And as sad as that may be, OKC can flip the script, and I think they will. OKC is in full rebuild mode, okay? All of their big assets that they had, like Chris Paul and Al Horford, they traded them away. Now they have a roster full of young players, and you have prospects that I love, like Shea Gilgeous-Alexander and Lou Dort. Shout out to my Canadian boys, let's get it. Then you have the draft picks that they've recently acquired, like Josh Giddey, and you have players like Pokushevsky that look very interesting. He has the potential at his height to be a unicorn type player in the NBA. And then you have Theo Maldon from France. He's an interesting prospect. Derek Favors is a good vet to have in your team. Kenrich Williams can give you a boost off the bench. Darius Baisley has had a good season last year, and I'm pretty sure he's going to level up at some point, but I'm not sure when. And Isaiah Roby, my goodness, they have some young prospects that are really going to add to this team and that OKC can build around this. And what I'm hoping to see moving forward is OKC moving on from the years of having KD, Westbrook, Ibaka, Harden, and Chris Paul and Paul George, and now moving into a new era. And really trying to stamp their foot in the league and put themselves on the map yet again with a fan base that is so hungry for wins, so hungry for a title after all of the years of being upset, after all of the years of being disappointed, after all of the years of being betrayed. They want a title more than ever, and the OKC Thunder roster has a chance to build something very organic and very fruitful. And this could be the beginning of an era that could bring great promise to this team and to the franchise as a whole.